My name is Hannah. My name is Hannah, and this is my beauty budget. All right, y'all, the time has come. Let's talk about me and brushes. Here's the deal. I never really believed that whole thing about having good brushes making a huge difference. And you know what? I think here's why. I think it's because when I first started watching YouTube, everyone was saying that, and they were saying it about Morphe brushes. They were like, you guys, having the best tool makes a really big difference and you should go out and get these brushes. So I got the Morphe brushes and they were fine, but I was just like, I don't understand why people keep saying that brushes make all the difference, because those brushes that I got didn't really make a significant difference compared to other brushes I had kind of been messing around with in my makeup youth. So I was never a brush investor. I had a set of brushes from Wet n Wild that got me quite far. I had a couple of Real Techniques brushes, and I had some ColourPop brushes, all of which you will see. And I had some Morphe brushes, which I handpicked when I went to the Morphe store in Burbank with Julene one time when she came to visit. We actually went to the Morphe store and I was able to pick out the ones that I thought would work the best. But still, it was always sort of interchangey business, like this one's just as good as that one, it's all totally fine. That's how I felt about brushes until recently. Recently, I have had the good fortune to be on the receiving end of some spectacular brush PR. Just some companies that sent me brushes. One of you sent me 2 stunning brushes. So my brush collection has gotten way too big for me because I don't need to have all these brushes. It's taking up too much space and it's stressing me out. And I would like it to be more simple. Brushes are an arena in which I really, really only want to keep the ones that I reach for consistently. I don't want any like backup brushes. And a number of my old standards, a number of the brushes that I purchased a long time ago and have been using for years, have been, to use Samantha March's term, dethroned by better brushes. And the quality of some of the brushes that I've had the chance to try recently has really shown me that super good brushes can make a difference. Now, I'm not saying that for you to do your eyeshadow well or for you to be good at makeup, you have to go spending a lot of money on the best brushes. Not at all. Because I muddled along for years and years and years with my Wet n Wild and my Morphe brushes, and I was perfectly fine, and I did good makeup, if I do say so myself. I'm just saying that because I have had the opportunity to receive some nicer brushes because of being on this platform, I'm ready to let go of some of the ones that don't measure up. So I'm doing a declutter. Let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. So these are all of my brushes, and I feel like it's more than twice as many brushes as I need. I know you can't see very much from up there with them at this angle, but I'll take them all out in a second. But I did want to say that I have done some sort of preliminary sorting of these brushes because I washed them all pretty recently. I washed them all, I would say 4 or 5 days ago. Some of them are now dirty because I've been using some of them since then, but most of them are clean. And after I washed them and dried them, I sorted them into 2 groups. These 4 little containers I put in front, and these 4 little containers I put in back, because these were the containers of brushes that I felt like I was the most likely to want to reach for immediately, and I wanted them to be easy access. And these were the ones that I thought, well, I might not want them this week. So already there's been somewhat of a mini declutter. These are all the ones that are on notice, and these are all the ones that it will be harder for me to part with. So I am actually going to go through the ones that I love first and be sure that I want to keep them. And then I'll go through the ones that I'm less likely to want to keep. And because I'll have already gone through the ones that I love the most, I will have them fresh in my memory, and I'll be encouraged to get rid of as many as possible because that is what needs to happen. So this is group number 1, my ostensible favorites. These are the face brushes and these are the eye brushes. Let's start with the face brushes. This might be kind of a weird declutter because of my preliminary sorting, because I look at these and right away I can just tell that I'm not going to want to part with any of them. They were hand-picked by me already earlier, but I will go through and tell you all about them. So this is the Rephr 04 and 05. I think that the first launch of Rephr, the initial collection, also includes a slightly bigger brush, a bronzer brush, which is the 06. I don't think I have that one. These are absolutely stunning. And I've already talked about Rephr a little bit on my channel. I had the good fortune to be able to have coffee with one of the owners of Rephr. I'm very impressed by the ethics of that brand and the way that they are proceeding to launch. They currently have a Kickstarter campaign up on which you can pre-order their brushes at, I think, something like 40% off. They are beautifully made, and they're made in the same small Japanese town where Hakuhodo brushes are made, and I believe where Tom Ford brushes are made. These two Tom Ford brushes were given to me as gifts by Rachel, one of you, a subscriber, and I just, it's like I was never willing to admit that the hype might be real. And I'm sure there are incredible brushes that cost a lot less in the world. I mean, the Rephr ones are actually a really good example, but I love these brushes so much that I think that if I lost this one, the bronzer one, I might actually buy it. Like, that's how much I love this. I think, yeah, I think if someone took this away, or if my house burned down, I think I might actually spend the money to buy this, because I bronze my face with this every day and it brings me so much joy. It is so soft and yet it's dense. It works so beautifully. You can control it very well. You can control the amount of product, and the way that it places and disperses the product on the face is incredible. But this is just to say, I'm very grateful to have this Tom Ford bronzer brush. It's iconic and I live for that. This is the blush brush, the smaller one, the 06. I'm gonna clear these out of the way so you can see. This is basically the same brush, you guys. This is the Rephr one. It is slightly fluffier. The Tom Ford blush brush is very, very dense, but the quality of the bristles is the same. And I actually kind of prefer a more softly dispersed fluffy brush for blush than this super dense one. And you can see actually what happened. I had been using them all. Then I washed all of my brushes and I immediately started using the Tom Ford bronzer brush on the first day. But when it came time for blush, I reached for the one from Rephr instead of the one from Tom Ford. I haven't used the Tom Ford one yet in the last 5 days since I washed my brushes, because I've been using this one from Rephr instead. I've been using these guys as my two favorite babies. So these are my prides and my joys. That doesn't mean that I'm going to declutter this one from Tom Ford, because I do find this dense brush to be really useful, especially for super glowy blushes where I want to buff them into the skin and get that shine. It's just so gorgeous. And then here are the rest of the face brushes from Rephr that kind of leapt to hand. I really, really love any brushes meant for buffing. This one is absolutely gorgeous. I haven't yet commandeered this as a concealer buffing brush, but I think that's probably what it will become. These Rephr brushes are pretty new to me, so I'm still getting to know some of them. And I've never really been a fan brush fan, but I really love this one because it's fluffy in this direction. It's like a little bit broad. I've been using it for highlighter a lot. You can see I already reached for it since I washed them. This angled one is really gorgeous for cheeks and any kind of subtle contour work. They're just stunning. They're stunning, stunning, stunning. And this little one, this little fluffy one, I think that this might be a prototype. This I use for highlight, actually. Even though it's so little, it's perfect for highlight. Here's another one from Rephr. These are, the Rephr brushes are relatively new to me, and I'm so impressed by their quality that I'm not gonna part with any of them at this point. So these are all pretty new and beloved. That leaves these guys. These are all pretty old, except for this one. This one a couple of months ago Serene gave to me, and it's replacing my super, super old and busted Sephora collection brush. It's also from the Sephora collection. So this is to me like a fluffy loose powder brush whenever I need something like that. I've been reaching for this one my whole life, basically. And it's gotten so old and yucky. Gosh, it still performs pretty well. The bristles still feel pretty good, but this one is just in much better shape, and the bristles are in much better shape. I believe that this one seems like it's natural hair, and this one seems like it might be synthetic. But to me, they really serve the same purpose. I'm probably gonna let this one go when I'm decluttering the second tier, and I'm gonna let this one be its replacement. This is an e.l.f. blush brush that I use for powder. This is like my dedicated powdering under the eye brush. If my under eye is ever looking like too dewy and it's not quite the flattering thing, I'll go in with the tiniest smidge of powder on this and just tap it under my eyes. I like to keep it reserved just for that and never put any color cosmetics on it. Like I never use it for blush or anything, because then I know that whenever I reach for it, even if I haven't just washed it, it will be clean and it won't accidentally darken or blush my under eye. So I'm gonna hang on, I think I'm gonna hang on to this one. So here's the thing. I have 3 brushes that look really similar. These are both the Wayne Goss 02 brush. One I purchased in a moment of insanity years ago, like 3 years ago. And this was sent to me as a gift by a subscriber. So I like this one better, the one that she sent. It's slightly fluffier and softer. It has brown bristles, whereas the one that I purchased has black bristles. And so I'm sort of tempted to use this black bristle Wayne Goss brush as my powder brush, but I kind of like the one from e.l.f. I like the size. I think I would miss it if it were gone. But when I want one of these, I always reach for this one. I don't need 2 of the same brush. And wouldn't it be nice to be able to give this Wayne Goss brush away? Isn't that a great gift? I'm gonna give it away. This is my OG highlighting brush. It's the Anastasia Beverly Hills A23. It's my default highlighter brush. Keeping it. And then this weird Wet n Wild brush, it's like flat on the top. I think it's supposed to be for foundation. I use this for brushing away fallout. And I find that this kind of dense, flat, soft, slightly domed shape is perfect for that. Like the powder brush, I tend to keep it only for that purpose so that I know that when I reach for it, it's likely not to have been contaminated by something else. So these are my main face brushes, my main gigs. I'm very happy to be keeping all of them. Eye brushes. All right, I'm gonna go through and pull the ones from Rephr right off the bat because it's kind of the same situation. I am so impressed by them. I'm so in love with them. I'm reaching for them every time I do my eye makeup, and they're so new that I just can't see myself parting with them. On top of which, I don't think I would want to, because part of the reason why I'm even doing this declutter is that these Rephr brushes have shown me the error of my ways with regards to many of my other eye brushes. So I have doubles of both the Rephr 03 and the Rephr 02. Tom was kind enough to bring me backups of each of one of these because I had told him how much I absolutely love these. These are my favorite brushes, eye brushes. These are my favorite eye brushes, these 2 brushes. And even though they're pretty small and dense and good for detail work, I think that they're versatile enough that I could probably do my whole eye look with just these 2 brushes happily. The 02 can be used to cover a pretty broad space if you turn it on its side, and it's soft enough that with a light touch you can really buff out the edge of something. They are just stunning. I'm so in love with them. I'm gonna try not to rave too much and go on for too long. So this other one with the matte black handle it's a slightly longer brush than the 02, but it's similar. It's the 01. It also comes from their kind of basic launch collection. And then these ones with the shiny handles are from the expanded collection. And I think some of them also might be prototypes. I love this short, dense one. That is my absolute jam. And then these fluffy ones, they're just so good for blending and buffing. These are like my core brushes right now. So let's talk about some of my OG brushes. This is a shape that I really, really like. I actually wish that Rephr would make a brush like this. The really, really flat kind of skinny brush. I don't know if you can see that. See how it's super, super, super squeezed, pinched ferrule? And this one and this one are also Wayne Goss brushes that were gifts. This one there is just like this one, but super, super, super tiny, like super, super detail work. I love these brushes. And then this is the one that I purchased for myself for this purpose way back in the day. It's the Morphe E43. So I have two brushes like this. One's Wayne Goss and one is Morphe, and I like having both of them because I reach for this style of brush so frequently that it's nice to have more than one. And this little one I don't use as frequently, but it's so adorable and useful. Definitely keeping those guys. This is a style of brush that I really love and that I also really wish that Rephr would make. This is the e.l.f. concealer brush. This is a Sephora collection brush that was in the same kit as that big fluffy purple one that Serene gave me. And they are both sort of designed for use as concealer brushes, but I use them for buffing glimmery eyeshadow into my eye and buffing blush into my crease when I'm setting up an eye look. I reach for these brushes possibly the most of all because sometimes I just use one of them to put a wash of color on the eye. When I'm going for a wash of color or wash of glitter on the eye, this is the brush that I use. So this right here is a style of brush that I really like. This is from Wet n Wild, and it doesn't have a number on it, but it's smaller than the other ones that I have. This one from e.l.f. and this one also from e.l.f. the e.l.f. contour brush. They're both very similar. It's kind of like a small, dense, slightly domed, sort of like a pencil eraser. That's what I think of it. I think of it as like a pencil eraser brush. So these are almost exactly the same, and they're very, very similar to this one from Rephr. So I now have three brushes kind of like this, and then I have this smaller one that serves a very similar purpose. And again, similar to this, I use this type of brush so often that it's nice to be able to dig out a clean one. So I think it will be worthwhile to me to keep all four of these. This is my concealer brush. It is the Morphe B19. I use this with my NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer, and I'm constantly losing it. But I'm glad that for now it's found again. I think it's a lip brush. I think that's what it's supposed to be. But this is one of my staple brushes. I'm definitely going to keep that. This is an OG brush. It's from the Urban Decay Electric palette. I absolutely love this brush. And actually, come to think of it, I feel like this end of this brush, this larger end of the Urban Decay Electric palette brush, is really, really similar to the Rephr 02. The Rephr 02 has the incredible quality of being able to pick up pigment so well. I mean, these goat hair bristles, they just grab onto pigment. It's amazing what they can do. So they're way more effective in that way than this synthetic brush from Urban Decay, but shape-wise, they're very, very similar. I get a lot of use out of this brush. The bristles are very soft. I almost always use both ends of this for buffing some kind of inner corner highlight into the inner corner of my eye. So I'm gonna hang on to that one. I would miss it if it were gone. And I think I need to talk about all of these different kinds of fluffy brushes, but first, I'm going to discuss this one. This is a super nasty, scratchy old Morphe brush that came with a set, super synthetic, plasticky hairs. They're constantly falling out. It's a truly disgusting, poorly made brush, and I use it all the time. I use it for really, really, really pushing eyeshadow around to buff it up into my crease and above my crease. And nothing sticks to it. It's like the opposite of a Rephr brush because it doesn't pick up pigment. It has a hard time moving pigment, it has a hard time doing anything. So I feel like I can go in with it and just scrub and scrub and scrub and diffuse stubborn lines of pigment. I find that I reach for it a lot. It's weird, but it's useful to me. It's definitely one of my staples. These fluffy brushes are sort of my old standard, like soft wash of color in the crease brushes. So I reached for them after I washed everything because I was pretty sure that I would be using them because I use this kind of brush a lot. But now I have these Rephr brushes and many of them look kind of similar. So I want to make sure that they aren't too many of the same type and too close. You know, these two Morphe brushes, the MB44 and the M79, both of them are just slightly looser, slightly fluffier. than these ones from Rephr. The Rephr ones just have a slightly denser core. And for that reason, I think that I'll use them for different purposes. So I feel comfortable keeping these two. Also, I've used them both since I washed them. I reached for them during makeup playtime to diffuse color in my crease. Of all of the brushes I could have reached for after washing, these are two of the ones that I use, and that kind of tells me that I would miss them if they were gone. This brush, I don't know if I need to keep. It's a Real Techniques brush. I remember loving the shape so much, like falling in love with this shape, and even talking about it in one of my favorites videos. I talked about it along with this one from Wet n Wild. So this Wet n Wild brush and this Real Techniques brush have pretty much the same shape. It's sort of this flat but long and slightly domed fanning shape. And I fell in love with the kind of control of a brush like this, but that's what these are. That's what the Rephr 01 is. It's amazing for the same reason, and the Rephr 02 is kind of like a slightly denser and even more controllable version of this shape. So even though I really loved these brushes at one time, and I really learned to love this shape and to use this shape, I think that these two brushes have been dethroned by my Rephr brushes. So I'm gonna go ahead and declutter those. These two big fluffy ones. So this is a Wet n Wild brush. This is the Morphe Emb 43, and I use these, or I used to use these to disperse pigment in my crease. And now I feel like they're too fluffy for that. I feel like they're too big and fluffy for that. And if I used them for anything, I would use them for cheek brushes, like for highlighting. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these with the cheek brushes in my second tier cups, and I will check them out when I get there and compare them to the other ones. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Brush. And when I cleaned them, I did a really, really thorough cleaning of this spoolie, which I thought was disgusting beyond repair, but it turns out that I was able to clean it out pretty well. I'll probably start using this for soap brows. So these eye brushes, I think I feel pretty confident keeping them all for now. So here's the second tier of brushes, the ones that got put in the back row after I washed everything because I just didn't see myself reaching for them right away. And that is pretty much what happened. So I'm gonna go through and decide if there are any of them essentially that I even care to keep. Let's separate them out into face and eye brushes. So there are the face brushes, there's a whole bunch of them. And here are the eye brushes, not as many of them. Let's start with face. It's kind of hard to even sort them. I'm sort of trying to sort them into different types of brushes, but I'm struggling to do that. I'm gonna pull out all of the ones that I think are sort of supposed to be highlighting brushes. So these two we just talked about, they came from my eye brush collection. I used to use them to buff shadow out into my crease, and now I feel like they're too loose and big for that. And I do think that they're intended to be cheek brushes. This is actually a duplicate of the Rephr fan brush that I decided to keep. I ended up with two of them, and I don't feel like I need two of them. So I'm gonna find someone who wants to adopt this gorgeous brand new fan brush. And these two, I just don't feel like I need because I have this Rephr brush that is for highlighting, and it's basically the same, like it's basically the same idea, but it's amazing. And these ones, they're just not sparking joy in me right now. And so I'm going to let go of them. This is an old Morphe foundation brush. It's the M439. This is definitely a Jaclyn Hill made me buy it situation. And I did use this for years to apply my foundation for the photo shoots. And it's been replaced, oh goodness. So these are three little complexion brushes that I use all the time, and they're sitting in their own separate little cup because they are so short, so they get lost in the bigger cups. This is the Sephora Pro Mini Flawless Airbrush. I use this to buff out concealer under my eyes. This is the Multitasking Complexion Brush from Sephora. It's much denser than this one, so I use it when I want to buff out something that's a little bit stiffer. And then this is a Kogan dough brush that was given to me by my friend Serene, and I use this for foundation now, so I definitely don't need to keep this one. This is a really weird Real Techniques brush. I think it might be supposed to be for concealer. It's got kind of a geometric shape at the head. I don't like it, and I don't know what it's supposed to be for. I don't want it. So this is a big fluffy e.l.f. complexion brush, powder brush that I purchased when I was trying to replace my nasty old Sephora one, but it just doesn't hold a candle. Like the bristles are shorter and stiffer and less soft. And so I continued to use this one, even though I had bought this to try to replace it. And then I received these beautiful brushes in PR from the brand Spicy Choco. I've talked about these before on my channel. I really, really love them. And they're very impressive, and they are also synthetic, but very, very soft. They're sort of the softest and most luxurious synthetic brushes I think that I've ever seen. So if you don't use animal hair brushes of any kind ever, and you're looking for like a super big, fluffy, luxurious, soft brush, I do recommend checking out Spicy Choco. I'll link them down below. They were kind enough to send these in PR a really long time ago, and I haven't really managed to give a full report on them yet, so I'm doing it now. But this brush, these are way better than it, so it can definitely go. Now, I need to decide what I'm going to do with these Spicy Choco brushes. They're a little bit difficult for me to store because the handles are so short. And I do really like them. I love how fluffy and soft they are, but I find myself reaching so much more frequently for the complexion brushes that I talked about from my first tier. These ones from Refford, these ones from Tom Ford, this big fluffy synthetic purple one from Sephora. They have kind of edged these Spicy Choco ones out of daily use, and it's really because I find them unwieldy. I find them difficult to store. They are really good at what they do. I need to take a moment. I need to decide about these at the end because there are practical reasons against keeping them, but my heart says that it wants them. So we'll come back to it. We'll come back to you, Spicy Choco. This is one of the oldest makeup related objects that I own. It's been a workhorse. It's been through the war, and it's time for it to be laid to rest. Wow. Let's talk about these sort of dense synthetic Real Techniques and Wet n Wild brushes. I don't think I need this because it's quite big, but it's quite dense. And I feel like that's for somebody who does a lot of powdering, which I don't do. I find this brush just takes up a lot of space and I never really reach for it. It's similar to this little one. It's like a weird shape, sort of. Like the ferrule is slightly, it's like an oval ferrule, and they're very dense and gradiated brushes, but I don't know. I find this hard to use, hard to control things with it. I'm gonna be glad to see this go. Weird brush. This Wet n Wild brush is kind of like a smaller version of this one, and I think that I used this brush a lot when I was using cream blush a lot. I was using those Kjaer Weis cream blushes a lot last year, and then the second one finally went bad and I decided to throw away the pans, but I still have the empty compacts, and I've actually been thinking about buying a refill for one of them because I loved those blushes so much. I think that if I were to acquire a cream blush in a pan, I would be glad that I had this brush. I think this is probably the brush that I would use to apply such a thing. So I am going to keep this one. Now this one, this weird foundation brush, is super dense, and I definitely use this a lot to apply cream blush, but it never made me super happy to do that because it's got this weird shape and that's not what it was meant for. I think that last year what happened was I started reaching for this to apply cream blush, and then I just kept using it as my cream blush brush, but I would rather have this one be dedicated for that purpose. And this is a more elegant brush to me, so I'm going to keep this one and I'm going to pass along this one. I don't like these. I especially don't like this one because I don't like this asymmetric shape for a big cheek brush. To me, it's just a recipe for unevenly applied product. This one can definitely go. This one, it's just, I don't know, it's an okay brush, but I have so many beautiful blush brushes that offer me more control. Wet n Wild makes nice brushes, and these pink tipped brushes are very soft. They are good brushes. I don't not recommend them. I just don't feel like I need to keep this one. It feels extraneous to me. I don't like this ColourPop brush either. It's, well, yeah, it's very, very dense, so you can imagine it would pick up a lot of product, but then when you go to buff it into the skin, it's like it flip-flops back and forth because the bristles are so long. If it were the same density but half as long, I would love this for buffing both cream and powder products into my cheeks, but as it is, the shape just isn't ideal for me, so I'm going to give this away. This is a super old Ecotools blush brush. I used this a lot. This was my only blush brush for a long time, way before the YouTube days. And even though it was just freshly washed, it still feels nasty to me because it's so old. I feel like it could never really thoroughly be cleaned. And I haven't reached for it in a really long time because of that same quality. So it's time for this one to be retired. These two, gosh, I'm attracted to them because they have this soft touch handle. They have these soft purple bristles. They're so cute. This is a foundation brush, and I did use this a couple of times. You know what? I'm going to hang on to this because the one from Kogan Do, the bristles have a weird smell, and I thought that it was the Bare Minerals foundation complexion stick I was using, but it might have been that it got into these bristles and it made it smell weird. So I washed this one pretty thoroughly, I thought, and then the next time I used it, it still smelled weird. So I'm not sure if it's the bristles or the foundation, or that the bristles are still not clean of the foundation, but on the off chance that I'm going to need to retire this, this is the foundation brush that will take its place. And this one, it's a very little targeted either blush or powder brush. It's such a beautiful object. It's so sweet, but I just know that I will consistently reach for other brushes instead of this one. There's no actual place for it in my brush collection, so it can go. All right, Spicy Choco, it's time to decide. These are all of the complexion brushes that I'm keeping. I'm just bringing them out so that I can compare Spicy Choco to them. So this one right here, this angled soft brush, is very, very similar to the Rephr 04, and I don't need both of them. In spite of my fondness for this brush, the Rephr 04 is superior to me in a number of ways, so I can let that be the reason to let that one go. Similar to this one right here with the 08, it's just, they're very similar, and these aren't brushes that I use enough, like the eye brushes where I have multiples of the same shape. These aren't brushes that I use enough that it makes sense to have multiples. These big soft ones, again, it's like this big soft brush is the only one I need of this kind. Like really, this is it. This is enough. This is the only bronzing brush I will ever need. I really just want this to be my one, and I was using these for bronzing, basically bronzing and washes of blush, but I've got these for bronzing and washes of blush, so I can let them go. I will say this: I really like these brushes. I really like this company. The thing that is causing me to pass on them is the fact that they're so short and little. And so it makes them harder to store for me. It's just less practical for me. But I could imagine these being very practical for someone. And I'm excited that I'll be able to give them away all as one little group, one little set like this. I'm sorry to see them go, but it's the right decision. All right, let's talk about these eye brushes that were in the back row, the second tier. So this is interesting. This is a Wayne Goss brush, the number 06, and I could never really figure out how to make it work, but now that I'm looking at it again, I see that it is very similar to the Rephr 01. It's just that the Rephr 01 has sort of more body to its bristles. This Wayne Goss one has very, very fine bristles that don't pick up pigment as easily. And I find it very easy to work with the Rephr 01. I don't find it easy to work with this Wayne Goss brush. And this isn't a shape that I reach for enough that it would make sense to have like a perfect one and then a not so great one. I'm just gonna keep the perfect one, and I'm gonna give away this Wayne Goss brush. This is a little concealer brush that was in that Sephora set, the soft touch handle, and I used this for a long time when I recently lost the Morphe brush that I always use for concealer. It was fine, it served its purpose, but I I think I can get rid of it and just hope that I don't lose the Morphe one again. If I do, I'll make do. It doesn't make sense to keep this around just as a backup. That's not the life I want. This little pencil brush. So this was my go-to pencil brush for a long time, like 2 years. It's the Morphe G27. I hand-picked it at the Morphe store in Burbank when I went there with Julene because I wanted the perfect little pointy pencil brush. And now it has been dethroned by my Rephr brushes. The Rephr 03 is just so superior. I just love it so much more. And I even find that I can use the Rephr 02 for all of the same stuff that I used this little pencil brush for. So as well as this has served me, and as much as I would get good use out of it, and I still do like it, I think that just in the interest of space and peace of mind, I'm going to give it to someone else because I have enough brushes that serve this same purpose. This is a weird brush. I guess this is a concealer brush, and I think that I purchased this at one time when I didn't really know what I wanted in terms of concealer. It's got very long, stiff bristles. It's a Sephora Pro brush. And again, like I don't need backup concealer brushes because I use the same one all the time and I really love that little tiny Morphe one that I have. So this one can go to someone else. This is a brush that I misguidedly purchased. It is a Troy Surratt brush. It's one of those ones that looks like a paintbrush. It's got very thin, fine bristles. Like look how squashable they are. Like you can squash them flat. It's just a wisp of a thing, and it had all these good reviews. There was all this hype about it. It was very expensive, and I've never for the life of me been able to make it work. Like I just can't use it. It's just, to me, it's like totally useless. I really wish I had never purchased this brush. That long tip just makes it super unwieldy. It slathers product everywhere. It's just, to me, it's not a good brush, and I'll give it away to someone who hopefully will appreciate it for its quality. This is another super weird, super stiff Real Techniques brush. It's the 200, and I think it might be not an eye brush. I think it's in the wrong place. I think it might be some sort of concealer or, I don't know, some kind of complexion brush. I never use it. These two brushes are very similar in use to this Morphe brush that I talked about, the fact that it's like really scratchy and bad and I just use it for buffing out product because it doesn't like pick up on anything. I use these two brushes for the same purpose, but I feel like it's such a weird niche thing that I only need one. So I'm going to keep this one. It's kind of like my most reached for one, and I'm going to get rid of these two. This Wet n Wild brush I got a lot of use out of. It's sort of a mid-size, just fluffy crease brush, but I have so many new Rephr brushes that have this same general shape that I don't feel like I need one more. This is an old Morphe pencil brush that's very scratchy and sort of jacked up. Definitely not keeping it. And this is an old Morphe angle brush that's actually perfectly nice. The tip is perfectly nice and the handle is really thick and bulky, unattractive to reach for, uncomfortable to use. I will give this away. This is a ColourPop brush that I use a lot. It's the E9, and I use this for bringing product kind of up onto the outer edge of the hood of my hooded eyes. Remember when I was holding up all of these brushes? The ones that I said are kind of like pencil erasers to me. I feel like this is just a slightly longer and more flexible version of this type of brush. And in spite of the fact that I kept so many of these pencil eraser brushes, I think I might actually miss this if it were gone. I think it might occur to me to try to find it and it might not be there, and that would make me sad. So I'm actually going to keep this. Wow, this is one of my oldest ever brushes. This might be as old as that Sephora collection one. It's by The Balm, and it has one sort of short stubby end and one long fluffy end, and it has just seen better days. It's all used up. One end is totally squashed, and I had this and I used it as my only eyeshadow brush for years and years before I really learned anything about makeup. I just used this and it was perfectly fine. I used this for buffing out into my crease and above my crease, and I used this for packing onto my lid and in the outer corner. And it's cute. It's sweet looking at it and how busted it is. It saw me through so many nights of tango makeup. but I just have better brushes now, and so I can say thank you to this one and pass it along. This is a Wayne Goss brush that was also sent to me. My subscriber Angela sent a number of Wayne Goss brushes several months ago, and it's an eyebrow brush, so it's got this little comb on the end and this little fluffy brush on the end. Sometimes I try to use this fluffy bit for brushing up my eyebrows. It doesn't really work that well. I don't love it, but this little comb is incredibly useful for cleaning spoolies, and I'm glad that I have it, so I'm gonna hang on to this. All right, moment of truth. I am keeping at this moment 28 eye brushes and decluttering 12. So it's definitely not a very exciting proportion in terms of what I'm keeping and what I'm letting go. I do feel like a number of these are sort of specialty brushes. Not a number, but like this one is sort of a specialty brush. This one is these are eyebrow brushes, you know. This one kind of doubles as a cheek brush. There are just, I don't know why I'm making excuses to you. This is a lot of eye brushes for two little eyes. So I just combed through them and I found that I have doubles of the P07C, which is one of these Rephr brushes, and I don't think that I will use this brush as often as many of these other brushes. It's long and thin, but a little bit dense, and I would like to have one, but I don't think that this is the kind of brush that I need two of, or that I'll be really glad that I have two of. And because they're brand new, it'll be exciting to be able to give one away. So I'm gonna give one of these brushes away. I did think long and hard about all of these sort of mid-sized fluffy brushes. I know that the detail brushes, the detail kind of crease work brushes, are ones that I really, really love and love having doubles of, and I don't have any qualms about those. But these bigger fluffy ones, I considered whether I could let one go, but I think it's nice to have multiples of these for makeup playtime, because I can kind of grab one and go in willy-nilly with it without worrying that I'll be dirtying my only fluffy brush, and then, you know, it'll have red eyeshadow on it tomorrow when I want to go in for a neutral crease or something like that. So I'm okay with having like 4 or 5 of these sort of mid-sized fluffy brushes, and then 3 or 4 each of the types of detail brushes that I like to use the best. That is what is fleshing out these numbers in this way. So I'm keeping 27 and I am decluttering 13. Oh, except these 2 eye brushes somehow snuck into my face brushes. So I'm actually decluttering 15 of the eye brushes. That feels a little bit more respectable. I've done much better with the face brushes. I'm decluttering 21 over here, and I'm keeping 19. And I feel really good about this spread. Also, it occurs to me that these 2 brushes here, I had them as eye brushes, so you could even say that I was actually decluttering 17 eye brushes. We put those with the eye brushes I'm getting rid of, which brings this down to 19 as well. So that means that I've taken my collection of face and complexion brushes down by half. I've cut it in half, basically. And if it's getting rid of 17 eye brushes and keeping something in the realm of 27, that's starting to feel like a much more comfortable balance, much more of the percentage that I was angling for. So just want to kind of show you in their little containers, if I can, that these are all the ones that I'm going to be giving away. So it's pretty much like 3 little containers full. And then these right here are the ones that I'm keeping. It's also kind of 3 little containers full. There are a few more of them here than the ones that I'm giving away, but this is going to be so much better. It's going to be so much better to have just this on top of my vanity than it was to have all of this. I feel like this declutter has been a rip-roaring success. And that is it. That was my brush declutter. I am filming this intro before I film the declutter, so I haven't done it yet. And I'm honestly a little daunted. I hope that it went all right. And I hope that I did a really good job of getting rid of a lot of brushes. I hope I was able to really pare it down. I guess I'm about to find out. You've already found out. Thank you for watching. I hope that it was enjoyable, and I hope that you are remembering to take extra good care of yourself right now so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.